Hello everyone. Today I'm going to go over how easy it is to do a partial seam. I have a block here, it's just from my scrap piles, and I figured to demonstrate I would show you with this. I want to add a border to it, but not in the traditional method where you would just do on the sides and then on the top and the bottom. Here we're going to have it a little bit staggered, so we do need to do that partial seam. And it's actually very easy. When I first heard about those seams, I was just like, yeah, no, not for me, but it's actually super simple. So the first thing you want to do is you just want to take your first piece and then lay it right sides together. You can start wherever you want. I'm just going to start on the bottom of my block. And as you can see, it's hanging over and we need that so that it all adds up later on in the end. And then instead of starting to sew at the end, we're actually going to sew somewhere around the middle of the block because we need this part loose so that we can add that last side piece later on without any issues. And then just for reference, my block was 9.5 inches, so I cut my strips at 2.5 by 11.5 inches. And I had to do some trimming and adjusting. I'm guessing my measurements were wrong, but I made it work in the end. So I just put some clips in to hold it into place, and I'm just going to start sewing somewhere on the middle of the block because we do need to leave that little tail end loose so that we can flip it up and out of our way later on when we sew the last side piece on. And then we're just going to sew it with a 1/4 inch seam like we normally would. I'm doing a little back stitch here just to make sure that my stitches will hold in place because it is in the middle of the block and it's not going to get overlapped with another stitch line later on to lock it in place. So you just want to sew all the way to the end and then just move on to the next side. Then once you're done sewing it, you can just cut your threads like you normally would. And then I'm going to flip this up. And as you can see, there is only half of the strip sewn to the block. And I'm just going to finger press this right now. I'm not going to take it over to the sewing machine. But we really do need that to be loose. And you want to give yourself lots of room because if you go too close to the edge, it will make it a little bit more difficult later on. So now we can just take our next strip and sew that down to the next side. And I'm going to do it on the left-hand side of my block. And if you lay these right sides together and if all of your measurements were accurate, everything should line up perfectly. And then we just go and sew that with a 1/4 inch seam. And then we just keep repeating the process until we get back to the last section. And then we finish it off with our little partial seam here. This is an old video that I had made and not really intended on using, but due to my surgery and having nothing else prepared, this is what I have for right now. As soon as I am healed up, I will be back in my sewing room, but due to doctor's orders, I will not be in my sewing room for another 6 weeks, so it'll be a while. So we just want to make sure that we move our tail out of the way when we're sewing because we don't want to accidentally sew that into the side there because then we got to get Jack out and do some ripping. So when you're sewing that last side down, just make sure that your tail is out of the way. And again, just a 1/4 inch seam all the way to the edge there. Then we'll head over to the table and I will show you how to finish this off. So here is the last little section that we need to do. So now all we have to do is fold this over and lay it right sides together, line everything up in the corner there, and then take it back to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam all the way to where we had stopped or started before. And then I'm just doing a little back stitch again just to make sure that it's nice and secure. And there we have it. It is all pressed and ready to go. And this is just to give it a different look for borders instead of doing your traditional. It just looks a bit different. And if you would use different colors and stuff, you would get different effects. And I kind of like it. And like I said, it's just a scrappy block from my scrap quilt that I use for my YouTube video tutorials. And if you're interested in making that maple leaf block, I will leave a link to that at the end card there if you want to see those videos. That's all I have. Thanks for stopping by. Until next time.